Mikedjkelly podcast.
This is the Mikedjkelly podcast.
Mikedjkelly.
Here we go, all aboard, get clapping, get cheering, here we go with the full fun. Fat 3, always look on the bright side, Mikedjkelly, shorter than short podcast. Shirt tucked in, tie neatly knotted, scene set, let's get going with this ratings winner of a cram-packed audio adventure that's all squeezed and stuffed into what we call the Mikedjkelly, shorter than short podcast.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
So off we go. Have you got a 1930s semi with original fireplaces? If so, my guess is your house price will be going up in value with what's happening in the energy markets. People will be buying them to burn wood, barbecue coals, or anything else they can lay their hands on. And if you've got an air raid shelter, you're sat on a gold mine. The way talks about fish are going with Europe.
On this week's podcast.
Always look on the bright side. Coming up on this Shorter Than Short podcast, from the top shelf, Richard Desmond, drag queens, pensions, railways, print size, I-360, Menwith Hill, Duke of Rutland, lorry drivers, taxi drivers, charities, competitions, and a whole lot more.
This is the Shorter Than Short Mikedjkelly podcast.
Let's do something worthwhile and sensible in this episode. Why not put the print size on the cover of a book? I keep buying books on the internet that I cannot read. I have now reduced my book buying to shops only. I will go back online when print size is available.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
On the bright side, pensions to rise by 3%, but what happened to the triple lock and the other 5%? Is it true that the electrification of rail routes in the UK are in tatters, that there are so many gaps in the system that only fossil-fueled trains are being used?
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
Cop-out 26, and the people who should be heard were not invited. Inspired by Greta's speech, not the leaders, and their plans to say things, but keep things as they are. And oh, plant more trees. No mention of stopping the mentality of private jets, private yachts, space vacations. Get used to it. You cannot buy things you don't need just for the sake of it. It's the wealthy who've got to give it up. The poor don't have it. Let's have a Shania Twain, that don't impress me much moment. What is a boggart? B-O-G-G-A-R-T. Well, it's a term used for a creature in English folklore. It's generally a household spirit turned malevolent trickster or mischievous goblin-like creature.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
Ladies and gentlemen, would it be okay if, say, a dementia sufferer pinched your bum, as due to their condition they do not know what they're doing? Also been thinking about the black and white minstrels. Not a sweet, but George Mitchell's black and white minstrels, who were outlawed in the 1960s for their portrayal of black people by white people who'd blackened their skin up. It's got me thinking about drag queens. Why are grown men doing this? Why is this acceptable? Also, why do so many females on nights out in city centres wear bunny girl headgear?
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
A long time ago, someone told me if you mention Menwith Hill in an email, it gets intercepted. Well, anything to boost the podcast listening figures. Menwith Hill, Menwith Hill.
This is the Shorter Than Short Mikedjkelly podcast.
Just ordered a takeaway curry with chips, then on the news an item on a world chip shortage. But no mention when ordering the takeaway. Out there on Twitter, Paul Lewis, the British Pie Association, who knew, warns of a pie crisis as tinfoil runs out. Has the world gone completely mad? Shane Woodhouse, I've reached a point where I'm rooting for the French and for Scotland. Robert Michael replying to @BBC News, it's the end of the world as we know it. Mohammed Safar, I don't mind paying my taxes when the poor can't, but I do mind paying my taxes when the rich won't. Chris Shaw, the the small print of Sunak's brewery plans, the lower duty rate on draft beer and cider only applies to drinks served from containers larger than 40 litres. It's left small breweries, which use 30 litre or smaller kegs, hanging by threads. And for a change, the Mikedjkelly Shorter Than Short podcast is looking at the evidence and based on the science, because that's what people say and do. Indeed, please do drop us a line to complain or say well done. And if you want to send your own stories, please send them to email hello@mikedjkelly.co.uk or on Twitter @MikeKellyDisco. Also, we now do podcast editing. Please get in touch for details.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mike Kelly.
Okay, it's competition time and guess the song. Bit of a tricky one this time. What song are these lines from? Gliddy gloop gloopy, nibby nobby noby, la la lo lo, sabba sibby sabba, nooby abba dabba, la la lo lo, dooby ooby walla, dooby abba dabba. Name the song or the artist or both.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mike Kelly.
Socialite and business owner Eliza Manners and daughter of the Duke of Rutland wrote to magistrates pleading hardship for a speeding fine to be reduced to 50 quid.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mike Kelly.
Our lines are very busy. Your call is in a queue. Your call is important to us. Please hold until an operator is through. Looking on the bright side, what about good morning? We have a full staff turnout. How may we help?
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mike Kelly.
You send your kids to uni to get a qualification to land them a good job, and then for some inexplicable reason, lorry drivers are being offered 40k a year. No uni qualification needed. The other day in Leeds, two major taxi companies raised their initial fare from £3 to £5, all because the drivers are leaving to drive vans or lorries for more dosh. And that's not the end of it. They're still short of drivers. Getting a taxi and being on time is impossible. And talking of taxi drivers, one in Brighton telling us cash is king, not an Elvis versus Johnny Cash thing, but a money thing, said he had a customer the day before who did all his transactions by cashless, then got a taxi and at bill paying time discovered he only had £1 left. Son does all his banking and transactions on his mobile and knows if there's a telecoms issue or a banking issue, he's stuffed. Talking of taxes, I see the Chancellor did not increase the taxes on petrol or diesel in the budget. Generous? Not really, as fuel is now at its highest price on record. He's getting more tax per litre sold than ever before. Beware, advert alert. Nice car, sir. Is it yours? Is it a Rolls or a Bentley?
It's a Bentley.
Have you got your fuel rationing vouchers?
Can you get extra ones when you have a big fuel guzzler like this?
No, you're only allowed the same as us commoners. Looking on the bright side, it's very nice that lorry drivers are being paid a decent wage. But why? Is it because not enough EU drivers were tempted by the Ebenezer visa, which would have allowed them to work until Christmas?
This is the Shorter Than Short Mike Kelly podcast.
Luckily, we have the army to help privately owned companies with fuel deliveries when poultry wages lead to staff shortages. It's a bit like bringing in the state-owned nationalised company, as in the army, to help out. Also, it's strange that none of the smaller energy suppliers could be helped financially by the government. But the larger power-guzzling companies that make steel, glass and paper, who threatened to stop machines if they did not get help, did get help. Wonder if they needed to be kept going because they were the companies that fund and support the Conservative Party.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mike Kelly.
How come in EastEnders, Emmerdale, Coronation Street, etc., there is never any mention of Brexit, the pandemic or fuel shortages? Come to think of it, they don't really get much coverage in the news either. Are they trying to hide the truth from us? So we think everything is okay and normal. Having said that, there is nothing normal about the Emmerdale or Corrie scripts at the present. It's as if they're not real life. I mean, a Corrie cast member can fall down a hole in the street into a sewer and then appear coming out of the river in Emmerdale. Nice to see Ashley Elliott on Celebrity Come Dine With Me.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
A lot of people feeling politically homeless at the moment. If Labour had Andy Burnham or David Lammy for Labour leader and Tracy Brabin as deputy, I would certainly be voting for them.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
Looking on the bright side, it's nice to hear about levelling up and making things as good for the poor in the north as the rich in the south. Although it's difficult to see where exactly it's happening, apparently millions of trees are being planted. Not exactly what I was expecting. I thought it was more to do with travel, homes, jobs, etc. Mind you, do not want to be levelled up with Brighton and all the streets with piles of rubbish on them. Hope it's due to a strike and it's not always like this here. The other thing about letting us northerners drive south is that we notice the roads in the south of England are better kept than those in the north. We stayed near the phallic rites of passage BA I-360 on the seafront. Early on a Saturday morning, they abseil down it. Is wearing a woolly hat a Brighton thing?
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
Have we talked about health yet? Let me check. No, we have not. Privatising the NHS? What's that about? Maybe we should go all out to protect our doctors, hospitals and all involved. Or they will become like NHS dentists, only open weekdays, office hours, £65 for a small filling, paying for a clean, root canal work and more intrusive treatments require a remortgage. How inspiring of Tyson Fury to give his £8 million winnings to the homeless. Shame those with overseas bank accounts are not so generous.
This is the Shorter Than Short Mikedjkelly podcast.
More from Twitter, John Dredge. One day I hope to become the oddest man in space. David Lloyd, can we rebrand contactless? Daft after all that time saying what it isn't. What about Flash or something? Michael Rosen, what's it called, that thing? When you accuse others of the thing you yourself are guilty of.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
Today's do-gooders are hearinglink.org. Hearing Link helps people with hearing loss, their families and friends. They are here to help you adjust to the practical and emotional challenges that hearing loss can bring. Offering shared experiences, practical support and guidance so you can reconnect with people and face the future with confidence. Whatever your query or concern, whether you have hearing loss yourself or wish to support someone else, please get in touch. They look forward very much to hearing from you. Find out more at hearinglink.org, part of Hearing Dogs for Deaf People.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
If you're new to the Mikedjkelly Shorter Than Short podcast, you can get to hear all previous episodes by just searching or shouting the Mikedjkelly Shorter Than Short podcast.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
Guest the celebrity, born William Michael Albert Broad on the 30th of November 1955. He first achieved fame in the 1970s, emerging from the London punk rock scene as a member of Generation X. His show business name was inspired a school teacher's description of him, often featured at white weddings. Who is he?
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
And on fake showbiz news, Orlando Bloom says he's pretty good at spelling, but has always struggled with diarrhea. Michael Caine says the rapid rise of Warburtons over the past 20 years has been nothing short of phenomenal. Joanna Lumley says she likes Ollie Murs songs because they make you think. Chart star Pink refuses to go on stage at a gig in Milan after learning her name has been misspelt as Oink on hundreds of tickets. Don't forget, pod pickers, if you want to get in touch about anything to do with the Shorter Than Short podcast show, please use the following to contact us. And if you have any stories, gossip, jokes or anything for the next episode, email hello@mikedjkelly.co.uk, on Twitter @MikeKellyDisco. If you have time, it would be appreciated if you can give us a review on any of the usual feedback sites.
This is the Shorter Than Short Mike Kelly podcast.
Lots of businesses these days just don't seem to have enough staff to keep the business afloat. If someone is ill or on holiday, everyone has to work that bit harder, or certain roles and tasks fall by the wayside. Keep hearing that there's now more jobs on offer than there's been for many years. Just a shame that most are on the minimum wage. Having applied for several jobs recently, I'm quite amazed at how many tests, questionnaires and trials you have to go through to get these lower ranking jobs, compared to some of the higher paying jobs I've had in the past, where it was just interviews on their own and then a yay or nay. Having said that, I see there is a Santa Claus vacancy at £20 an hour at Brimham Rocks. What would happen if MPs had to manage on the minimum wage?
Beware, advert alert.
Have you got your new fuel rationing vouchers yet? To get yours, you will need to fill out a simple form at gov.uk/fuel rationing. To get your allocated vouchers, simply answer these questions correctly. Is your bank account in the UK or Barbados? Have you made a contribution to the Conservative Party? Did you vote yes or no to Brexit? Once your form is submitted, and if you've answered the questions correctly, you should receive your vouchers within days. If your car is a high-guzzling, non-green Bentley or Rolls-Royce, let us know so extra vouchers can be included.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mike Kelly.
Strange that the Queen declined the Oldie of the Year award from the Oldie magazine, then ends up in hospital and doing light work from her desk at home.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mike Kelly.
Final burst from Twitter. Chris Choi. Any driver with a GB sticker on their car needs to replace it with a UK if taking the vehicle abroad. Victoria Charles. Did you know that at York Minster opens at 06:37 a.m. every morning to commemorate its opening in 637 AD. James Stewart, at least we can't hear all the electric car drivers laughing. Mike Reed, I saw yesterday that record companies were signing artists solely on the size of their social media followers without even listening to their music. Mark Steele. She's won $2.5 million. If she wins another slam, she'll be the only teenager who can put a deposit on a flat in London. Sheena, at the McDonald's Monopoly game, I won a free day pass to the gym. Sir Norman of Nowhere. The only protective bubble during this pandemic was put around the Conservative Party by the media.
This is the Shorter Than Short Mike Kelly podcast.
And the late news. What's the busiest time of day at a 24-hour McDonald's? I think it's between 2 and 4 a.m. Breakfast done properly. Why are city centres so full of drunks these days? Billionaire Richard Desmond, former adult TV channel and top shelf magazine Asian Babes and Readers' Wives, has hired lawyers to remove the pornographer element from his wiki profile. Decided to cross those animal-loving people at the Cottesmore Hunt off my Christmas card list. Not a fan of JCB for obvious reasons, but interesting to hear of their plans to import green hydrogen from Australia to set up a green hydrogen fuel network in the UK. Recently, it was the 50th anniversary of the test-at-home pregnancy kit. 50 years ago, the Predictor Home Test was invented by Margaret Crane. She was not credited for her role in its creation. Apparently, the official statistics watchdog says misuse of government figures on 47 occasions, mainly by a Mr. Hancock. In the Swap Energy Provider game, my new energy supplier is EDF. I hope they don't hold grudges. I used to be with them before I moved to a cheaper supplier.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mike Kelly.
If you want to get in touch with this top-rated and sometimes much listened to podcast, please contact email hello@mikedjkelly.co.uk, on Twitter @MikeKellyDisco. Indeed, if you want a podcast making for your business or your podcast professionally edited or need help with radio producer or presentation, travel news, voiceover work, please get in touch. Please tell your friends about the podcast. All they need to do to find it is search on Google for the Mike DJ Kelly Shorter Than Short podcast.
This is the Shorter Than Short Mike Kelly podcast.
Okay, it's time to go. Guess what song these lines are from? Gliddy, gloop, gloopy, nibby, nobby, noby, la, la, lo, lo, sabba, sibby, sabba, nooby, abba, dabba, la, la, lolo, doobie, ooby, walla, doobie, abba, dabba. Name the song, or the artist, or both. The answer is, it's from the musical Hair. It's Oliver with Good Morning Starshine. Guess the celebrity, born William Michael Albert Broad on the 30th of November 1955, he first achieved fame in the 1970s, emerging from the London punk rock scene as a member of Generation X. His show business name was inspired by a school teacher's description of him, often featured at white weddings. Who is he? It is Billy Idol, who, having accumulated 30 UK top 10 singles, Rebel Yell, White Wedding and Mony Mony, released a 1988 greatest hits album entitled Idol Songs, 11 of the best. The album went platinum in the United Kingdom. Guess what? That's enough for this edition of the crazy Shorter Than Short Shabby Shabba podcast show from me, Mike Kelly. Thank you for listening. Please take care out there, and remember you can always find the podcast by searching or shouting Mike DJ Kelly podcast.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mike Kelly.
Mike DJ Kelly podcast.
This is the Mike Kelly podcast.
Mike Kelly.